Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week on Magnet Marketers. This week, I'm excited to talk about the topic when to hire a social media manager and what questions you should ask before hiring a social media manager or a social media agency. It's kind of a big step to consider hiring someone to really represent your company. So thinking thoroughly through questions that you need to ask and maybe those things that come up are really, really important. So this week, I have next to me Dr. John Bennett. He's speaker, life coach, and founder, CEO of Bodyworks Wellness. So welcome, Dr. Bennett. I'm excited to have you here with me.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and this week, Mike Gingrich, my usual co-host, is working with his son and doing the basketball thing this season. They're doing pretty well this season, so he had to jump in there. So completely understand. And this actually worked out perfect because you actually went through this whole process of hiring a social media agency and went through these questions. So it actually will probably work out better this way of doing this together and picking your brain a little bit on what went through your mind as you were going through the hiring process. So
awesome. Yeah.
So Dr. Bennett, would you like to add anything to your introduction or anything I didn't mention?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. I mean, our primary business is health and wellness, and we've done that for the last 25, going on 26 years. One of the things that we do also, as you mentioned, is we travel and teach leadership principles and leadership development. So our whole engagement with partnering with the marketing team was for us to get our message out, because a lot of people didn't really understand completely what it is that we did. So that's what started us on the journey of interviewing people to find out, what was the right fit for us, and how would that relationship work? How would we best benefit from that relationship? So,
and that's kind of a nice entry into our topic today. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jessica Phillips with Now Marketing Group and Relationship Marketing System. And our whole principle is to help companies become a magnet with their marketing versus being a bullhorn. But a lot of companies do come to this crossroads, like you just mentioned, where they're making that decision. When is it a time to hire someone, or why should I be hiring someone? So it really starts off when you're asking these questions is what your goal is. And for you, you said it was because you wanted to get that message out. Like you felt like maybe there was more to your story that people didn't know, or the community didn't know as a whole, service offerings that you had, and things like that. What else was it for you? Was it a time thing, or?
Well, I mean, timing was right for business. I mean, we've grown our business quite well without social media over the last several years, but the market has changed, and the way you engage with clients. And, I think that's one of the big things that, oftentimes there's confusion about how do I turn social market or social media into dollars in my account? And that's not necessarily what our goal was from the beginning. It was to be able to engage with people outside of our office. So if they were in our office for a short period of time, or they heard me lecture on a weekend for a 6-8 hour seminar, that might be the only contact I had with them. How could I stay in contact with them when they were out of my office? So that's what really led us to, asking the questions, are we up to speed on our website? Are we up to speed on the way we're communicating with, because the reality is, whether it's young or old, everybody is engaged in some sort of social engagement now. And so, I learned a whole lot as we started to ask these questions about different types of platforms, and was it right for our ideal client, and where did we really want to be out there speaking and getting that message out? So,
right, because now it's not so much if, it's how. It's not if you should be doing social media and if it's right for your business, but it's how are you going to do your social media? Is it going to be a team member that you have full-time in-house that's handling it? Is it going to be an extra hat that someone else is wearing in addition to their job roles that they have right now? Or are you going to look outside to hire? Because it is a crucial part of business now. It's not just the marketing aspect. I mean, it's customer service, it's relations, it's operations. Every piece of your business can touch someone else in social media realm, whether asking questions or, trying to look up your business. I mean, if you look up companies online, you almost expect to find them anymore on Facebook. You expect to find them there and get them there. So now it's like you said, how are you going to stay in touch with them then after they leave your office and keep that engagement? So now that you knew that you needed to hire someone, and you knew that, it's time to start looking, what kind of questions did you come up with to ask and to interview, I guess, social media account manager?
One of the first things was really setting, I interviewed 3 different companies.
Mhm.
We looked at several, but we decided to interview 3 of them because of their presence on social media. So in other words, if I'm going to hire someone in marketing or social media, hopefully they're up to speed on their
Yeah.
social media,
Yes.
So that's one of the first things is kind of look at the content that they're putting out there.
Yeah,
So
you'd be surprised. That one's really a lot overlooked. They're like, oh, we sell social media, we do this social media management, but they have no representation for themselves. Yeah,
exactly.
that's a big
Yeah. So that was, that was the
practice.
first area that we started. So out of that group, we narrowed it down to three different organizations that we actually interviewed. And one of the first things that we always look at when we're engaging with business or engaging with the client is, what do I know about that person? Do I like them? Do they resonate with my philosophical beliefs? And can I trust them? Can I trust and believe in what it is that they say? So everyone claims to be an expert. Yeah. Yep. Everybody's an expert in their field. And it's so funny. We have these buzzwords that are thrown out there, but what does that really mean? So one of the things I always do, Jessica, is ask the question, why? Why do you feel you're an expert? What makes you an expert? So, explain that to me a little bit. Why do you separate yourself from everybody else, or do you feel that you are worthy of the status of expert? So that was one of the biggest questions. And then, from that point, we would look at, in other words, the direction that they, I guess the easiest way to put it is this: when you engage in the conversation and everything is about me, then it's a turnoff to me, right? So when they were able to say, listen, this is about you and telling your story and how we can help you, become better at creating the story that you want to get out there, then they caught my attention. And like I said, there were 3 companies that did that. So that was the biggest, was asking them, why they felt they were a leader in their particular field.
That's a good one. That's a really good one, because you'd be surprised, how many can answer it back and what does separate them apart. Because a lot of companies, when you ask that question, oh, it's because, our customer service. Well, that may be the case, but just show us, the proof, show us what you've done for others, maybe give some examples of what they've done. And also anyone, a question that I always tell clients to ask if they're hiring, or anybody that's looking to, to hire, is, what does their starting process look like? Are they going to ask you those questions in order to tell your story, well? What does their packages look like? How do they get started with you? Because if it doesn't start with that interview process and they just say, hey, we're going to hit the ground running, and it's just kind of a custom one size fits all plan where we're just going to have this one set of queued up content for everyone that everyone shares out of this pool, then that's not going to effectively tell your story. It's just going to be on autopilot, your whole plan on autopilot.
Right. And something in, just because of the experience of going through it, that I think adds to what you just said there. If we were to ask the question, what does it cost, for what's the investment on my part for you to become our social media or our marketing team, and they had a set price for me, well, I already know they don't understand my story, right? They're just selling a product to me. So that's a very good point. And the 3 that we spoke to, when it really became pertinent was when they started saying, okay, let's figure out what it is that you want, and then we'll come up with a plan of that in the end. Let's find out where you're at, where you want to go, and then we'll talk about what it costs to get to that point. So very good point.
The next thing is asking too, like, what is going to be your responsibilities ongoing versus what is the company's responsibilities ongoing? Like, what will a partnership look like? So what is going to be required of me and what's going to be required of you? Like, setting those expectations from the get-go, because not all partnerships are created equal. Let's just say, you can say it that way. No. You could say, oh, you're hiring us, but we just helping in some companies are just saying, well, we'll just help you in the consulting end, or we'll just post content for you on autopilot, but not be in there to answer messages if they come in, or create those customized images if that comes in. So making sure that there's a clear, detailed explanation of what those services include. And how that message is going to be delivered.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. One of the things I do is I travel and I teach other physicians, how to engage and communicate with their clients. And it's amazing how many times you'll have business owners that say, well, I just want to hire a company to develop my website for me. Like, they're just going to give it to you, and then you're going to come up with all the content and everything else. How in the world are you going to create my content if you don't know what I'm about? So it is a partnership. And I'll be honest with you. as I started the journey, I said, geez whiz, I should have had this interview 6 months ahead of time, so I could have prepared the content and then engaged, because it does take a lot of work. So if you're going to start that process, realize it is going to take work on your part as a business owner to help develop some of this. If you truly want to get that story out
there. That's a good point, because a lot of companies and businesses, when you look to hire someone, they're almost like, this is a pain point for me. I don't have time to manage social media. I want to pay someone else to manage it and take that off, of my plate, but I'm just going to pay you, just run with it. And I'm not going to talk to you again until the time is left to, come up to renew our contract. That will not work effectively. It does require a partnership. It does require, hey, let's set our goals at the beginning. Let's talk about what needs to happen. But in order to tell your story effectively, we have to get those nuggets, of information of what makes you the expert and what's going to set you apart. And then we can adapt, and talk about the strategy and manage those day in, day out tasks. But then regroup and talk about a new strategy or new game plan, to kind of keep the ball moving forward, so to speak, to keep things going. But it's definitely that communication ongoing, because things are going to change in your business over the year. For a prime example, you were just out speaking in California, we need pictures from that, to tell and post up and share those happenings that are happening, throughout the year. So it does take some time. Yeah. I've always been surprised at the companies that can take a website and just, create it. And it usually looks good, but the content or the flow doesn't really stand out from the competitor or someone else that may be doing the same thing.
But, as I looked at that, Jessica, over the last year, I've learned a lot of things from this. I believe in those situations, it's people creating an information website. Yep. So it's not really an engagement or a marketing type website. There might be some great info, and anyone can, they can Google you or a researcher. You can give them, tidbits about what it is you do, and they can create an information place for you, which is what we had before. And it was mediocre at best. It was mediocre at best and really didn't serve a great purpose for us, because the way we look at our marketing now is, how do I continue to engage in these relationships to build a deepening a relationship? How can I be transparent so that people can learn a little bit more about me? And just like you said about like speaking engagements, I had this week that was the whole buzz in my office this week. Where did you go? What was it like? What was your favorite restaurant? Who did you meet? Things like that. So yeah.
That's a good point, because if people are buzzing about it in your office, but they don't hear the buzz on social, they're going to know that there's some kind of disconnect. Because if it's happening there, the same energy that's happening in your office should also be on your social media pages.
Exactly.
Field. So here's another question that we had on our list of, prepping if someone's looking to hire for a social media account manager. But you definitely should ask if there's a contract involved. Find that out right out of the gate, because we believe in no contracts, just because, if it's working for you, you shouldn't have to commit to a contract and be kind of locked in. I do understand, a commitment of, 30 days or whatever, if you're planning content in advance, but making sure that if there's a contract or not, who's going to be writing your content for your social media, making sure, if that's going to all fall on the client's end, or if it's going to be on the, the social media team's end or the agency's end, or if it's a combination of people sharing and maybe creating content, and then it goes through approval process with each client. But those are definite some questions to ask. How often you get to talk to your social media account manager to make sure that you're really going to be able to stay in contact with them and, get to know what the process is and if it's working or not, or if you need some tweaks along the way, because it's going to take a little while to capture someone else's tone of voice. It's going to be a little bit of back and forth until you can kind of nail it down. And I know you went through that as well. Even with working with your account managers, it takes a little bit nobody talks exactly like you, but the goal is to get it to drill down to where it does sound more and more like you.
Yeah. And it's amazing when you get with a good account manager and they start to understand your verbiage and the way you say things, and they start to see some of the things that you share with them. It amazes me how their personality shifts a little bit, and they can become much more expressive about the way that you say things, or the way, the information that you want to have out there. But it is a back and forth, because, at first that it's like any relationship though, right? So like it's a dating relationship. You know, you don't go out on the first date and expect, okay, wow, this was perfect. We're going to get married and everything's going to be peachy keen.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a while to develop those things, and it's questions back and forth for that to take place or that to happen.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, and that does
yeah.
bring up a good point too on the skill sets that a social media account manager or someone should have, because you have to trust them with your writing. So they have to have some skill set in writing and creative writing. The second thing is going to be definitely, the engagement and the tuning in to the messaging of if somebody's commenting on something, that they have either another person that does that and has the art of engagement within either their wheelhouse of tools, or working with another team member that's going to do that. But then also strategy, being able to see something maybe that needs to be, revised or improved, or see areas of opportunity that they can tweak and continue to build up on. But another thing is, if they're staying up in tune with your industry specifically. So if you're hiring a social media account manager, whether that's in-house or you're hiring an agency to do that, they need to know what's buzzing in your industry and stay in tune with that. Whether they're following industry magazines, whether they're, following, trends online or speaking directly with you, but they have to know what's happening in your industry. I know, you work a lot with standard process. So
right. Jessica, that brings up a great point. One of the companies that we engaged in the conversation with, and we were actually down, the final two were two HubSpot marketing agents. Mm-hmm. And one of them did a tremendous amount of work in the hospital industry. Mm-hmm. So their view on healthcare came from a more medical standpoint than ours from a holistic approach. Not saying that's wrong. Right. It's just what they were exposed to before. So mm-hmm. some of the content that they, or some of the engagement, I wouldn't say content, but some of the ideas that they pitched to me were from a more medical standpoint. And I could tell from the get-go that they really weren't understanding what my niche was. And I was afraid that I was going to be pigeonholed into a process or way of thinking, because they have several large accounts in the hospital industry. Mm-hmm. So I think that's super important. Not only are they up to speed on what's going on in your industry, what does that tone or what does that voice look like? In other words, what's their philosophical belief like? And it doesn't mean that company couldn't have eventually learned what we were about or what we were trying to say, but it would take more work. Right. I guess. Does that make sense?
No, that makes.
It would take much more work for them to decipher that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense, because if they're used to pitching things a certain way and writing that way, it's hard to come back from that. If they're used to talking that way. Yeah. The other thing to look for and a question to ask is reviews. So what are other people saying about that company? You first said, looking at what they're already putting out there, not only for themselves, but look at what they're putting out there for other clients. So ask them for reference sites of things that they've already managed or currently managing, so you can get a good idea of the quality of their work. Is it consistent? Yeah. And maybe ask to talk to some of those clients that they've managed and get some references.
Word of mouth is so important. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is the best that you can get. And the company that we actually went with, it is 6 hours away from us. Mm-hmm. The other company was in our hometown here, and it'd been easy for me to run across town and share information. Actually, the other two were in my hometown, but the company I chose was 6 hours away. Mm-hmm. And they came from a recommendation of a good friend. And so I felt that I already had some type of rapport. Right. Because if my friend who had a long-term relationship was willing to say, hey, check these people out, then I already knew there must be something good about this group, and I got to find out what it's all about. So word of mouth is a great way. And again, though, it's so funny, because you'll see these companies out there that claim to be marketing experts, and they have no reviews on themselves, or they don't have any testimonials or anything else. Yep. So. And it makes, I guess the proof's in the pudding. Right?
This is true. Yeah, this is true. But then also, what is included in your package? So we talked about, what the responsibilities are for both ends, and they may be able to offer something, but maybe it's an a la carte kind of thing. So making sure what is all included. Are you going to be pitched one thing, but then say, yeah, but that's not really included? So making sure that you have a clear outlined here's what our partnership's going to look like. Here's what's included. Here's contract terms. Here's the team members that are going to be working on your account. We speak the same tone of voice language, making sure that everything's kind of lined out before you say yes. And then also like what our approval process would be if they are starting to work for you. Do you get to look at everything? Do you have full access to your accounts? That's part of, knowing what's in your package. Are you going to have transparent access to your reports? And how often, are you going to be able to access those or talk through those with someone?
Yeah. And again, back to what we originally said, I think it's important as a business owner that you're involved in that. Mm-hmm. Don't just, in other words, if you trust your business and value your business so much, why in the world would you just turn the keys over to somebody else? You have to be involved in that process. And I think another very good question out of that, Jessica, is how do you measure success? Mm-hmm. So success to me as a business owner may be something totally different. I was on a blab a few days ago, and Jed was on there, and they were talking about return on investment in marketing. And he said, I'm kind of like an old school marketer. I don't know that there's actually a return on investment from marketing, but and then the other people saying, well, from an advertising standpoint, you look at return on investment. So again, you have to be clear about how the company's going to measure success and how are you going to measure success, because oftentimes people say, well, I had someone develop my website. I had someone doing some social media posts for me for 60 days and it didn't drive any money into my office.
Yep.
So again, you got to determine what's my goals.
Yeah.
How am I going to track that? What are my individual goals and what are those benchmarks? How are we going to set those benchmarks?
Because they may be looking at it like, we've been awesome. We just brought you 1,200 fans. And you're looking at like, I didn't make $1,200. So you have to really outline those right out of the gate. Yeah. You're right. So, and that goes their onboarding process. When you're asking those questions, what does that onboarding process look like? It sure as heck better be like setting up, what are my goals as a customer? Like what are your goals? What do you want to get out of this? And how are you going to measure success? And making sure then the whole plan that's set up then and to your proposal is helping you to get to those goals, or at least know if they're realistic or not. Right. And who you're trying to target. Yeah. I mean, because that's huge. Because if you're both looking at two different measurements of success, it's going to be a bad communication, back and forth from there on out. So they're like, no, we're killing it. What are you talking about? We just got 1,200 fans. Woohoo! They're all from Asia. It doesn't matter. We already 1,200 fans. Aren't you excited?
Yeah, I have a lot of people looking at me, but it's not driving any business to my office. So.
Exactly. I didn't sell anything. Yeah. But that's another point, if they are, able to communicate and know your local audience, because I know I've heard it both ways. Like, should we hire social media teams that are only in our backyard, because then they understand our audience, our demographics that are here, or is it okay to work with a social media account manager that lives, like you said, 6 hours away? And I could see it both ways. And this is huge when you're talking and interviewing someone to be your potential representation of your business, is how closely they're going to watch your pages and what's happening in your own market, especially if you're targeting that market. Because the last thing you want them to post if they're working on your account is, are you guys enjoying this beautiful sunny day? And it's because it's sunny outside their office window, right? Yeah. But it's like pouring down rain and like 50 degrees outside or something there. And they're, and your clients are looking around like, what is this guy talking about? Where is he at? Where is he at today?
Right. But you know what? That again, a great point. That comes back to how well are you connected to and how well are you staying connected with your account manager?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. In other words, are you sharing that information? Things that are happening in your town. What's the weather like in your town? What are you doing today?
Yep.
It amazes me. Our one of our account managers. My wife has more contact with him than it's almost like they have a thing going on. I love it, because they're sharing information constantly, and I mean, he's taking a real interest in what it is that we're doing, and vice versa.
Right.
Like, I feel like now I have this friend because like I'm following things that they're doing
Yep.
and things that they're doing not only in business but also in their personal
Right.
life. So you really do start to form this relationship.
And
Yeah, and it's all about relationships. It really is.
you have to, and that goes back to when you said you're hiring someone, and based on that conversation that you have with them, whether you're bringing them internal or you're hiring out an agency, it has to have that good relationship. Because the last thing that you want, if you need to get something out on social, you can't wait for them. Oh, I only respond to my emails 9 to 5. You may need to get
Yeah,
something out. Definitely respect each other's time, don't get me wrong, but you need to be able to
right.
form that good relationship with someone that you can shoot them a text or send them that picture of your outing on Saturday, that they'll make sure that they get up for you, and that you do formulate that good relationship, that conversation back and forth, because that's what's going to work. It has to.
Yeah,
They have to be able to post as you. And I see a question here
yeah.
by Online Events. Sandra, hi, welcome to the Blab. But should they post as you? Yes, depending on if they're posting as the company on the company's behalf. I know Dr. Bennett here, he has 2 Facebook pages. He has one that's Bodyworks Wellness, and you have one that's yourself, right, Dr. John Bennett?
Right. Yeah, Dr. John
Both
Bennett.
of
Sure.
them, he's working both side by side with an agency, and then also he's also posting as himself or as the company on the page, because you have that full access to that page. As a business owner, you should always have full access to your pages to post when you want, as long as you're communicating with your social media team that is also putting up things, so you guys aren't doubling up on the post, or posting over one another. But you should also be able to interject whenever you want, and have that, be able to do that right then and there. And people shouldn't be able to tell the difference whether it was your social media account manager that posted or you that posted.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's an awesome question, because oftentimes busy in practice, people will, and I think this is a key too. I hear so many people say, well, I'm posting stuff on social media. And to me, it's not about just posting content. It's about engaging in a conversation.
Yeah.
So if something's posted and someone comments on that, oftentimes, maybe I'm busy with clients and I don't have time to respond to it. And I'll go back and look at it, and our account manager will type something in, hey, thanks. And, and it's, in other words, their posting is me. So it looks like we're engaging in present time with that individual. And I've got so many compliments on that. You guys are really quick to get back with us when we engage in things. And that is brilliant, because oftentimes as a business person, you may not have the time to specifically do that. So yeah, that's a super good point.
And that's the core benefits of working with a team. It is that savings, that time savings, their training and working all the time. If it's a good company that you're working with, on staying up to date on what's new and what's happening. So they're always going to be learning how to post online and what new tools to use, whether it's Blab or whether it's, the Facebook new messaging or lead capture or Facebook ads that's rolled out, but staying in tune with what's happening there. But it's, all the time, that's what their role is going to be: learning, staying up to date on what's new, saving you time. And it also may save you some cost savings too, because if you're working with a social media agency, they may have all the tools in their back pocket. They may have a video, person on the team. They would have a design person on the staff, and a creative writer, engager, the full deal, which if you were to hire each one of those people individually, it's going to add up really quick.
Totally. Yeah. And 2 points there. One thing I want to get to is I want to answer the question that Online Events has there. She said, if the customer assumes they're talking to you as a business owner, does it matter if it's the team answering it? One of the things that our account manager does, and I'm not sure what your first name is, but like if it's a personal message or something that they don't feel comfortable answering, Sandra, thank you. If it's something that like I'll get a message from them that says, hey doc, you need to check this out. So-and-so's asking a specific question. And so they don't over, and again, that comes back to when you're hiring that company to set those boundaries up. This is what especially like in the medical profession, because you're dealing with HIPAA and things of that nature. So they can give general chat advice, but when it's a specific thing, like we get and it's it's amazing because not only do I get it, my wife gets it also. And it'll say, hey, so-and-so just commented on something. They have a specific question about X, Y, Z. And then one of us can jump on instantly and answer that. So, I mean, it amazes me again, because they'll say, how in the world do you guys have all the time to do everything that you're doing, but yet still have time to answer these questions? Like, are you sitting around just watching the screen and seeing it going on?
That's so true.
And then
that's a good point.
The second part of that question or point that you just brought up, when we looked at our investment, what would it take for me to hire an employee in my office who's probably not as skilled as a marketing company or marketing agency? What would it cost me to hire that individual, cover them with workers' comp, everything else, to just have them do nothing but manage our social media accounts? To me, it was a no-brainer, to source that out to someone that's an expert in that field. And again, I didn't look at it as an expense. I looked at it as an investment. What am I willing to invest in myself to really get my message out there?
Right. So, that's a good point.
Great point.
And also, when you said setting up those boundaries, the general chat, and talking and answering questions, there's a lot that can be answered general, or it's okay to let somebody know, hey, I'm going to get back with you and find that out, especially if you're answering on behalf of a company versus the personal page, and say, hey, just want to let you know you've been heard. Like, I've heard your request, and I'm going to go find that answer for you. Like, I know when we work with clients, there's a lot of, you mentioned the HIPAA. It is the HIPAA regulations where they're asking questions, or even asking to deliver a message to maybe mom or grandma when we work with some of our nursing home clients, where they're asking for that message to be delivered. And we'll say, hey, we're going to get that to the administrative, building, and make sure that that message is delivered, and we'll give you a follow-up back. And then just make sure that they get that response back then after the fact. But it's great to let them know at least they've been heard right then, right away, so they know that engagement's there. Now, I've also seen it though on larger companies' pages. I know like Social Media Examiner does this. If you do have a full team in-house that's managing something, it's okay for them to sign off their name, especially if they're posting things that are beneficial to your audience and maybe your goals. Maybe one of your goals is to build, a subscription-based service, and the people that write well to reach that audience are, a certain tone of voice that's in your office, and they maybe post on a Wednesday every day, and it's okay for them to sign off their name. I guess that's really dependent on the business, what business and what industry you're in, versus like for, Bodyworks Wellness, it's going to work better if you just post as the company or on your personal, Dr. John Bennett page, or, posting as Dr. John Bennett on your page versus each time somebody else is posting on there signing off. So it really does depend on your industry itself.
Yeah. I would agree with that totally. Yeah.
I do have a link in here to a list of the questions that we came up with that you should ask when choosing to hire a social media account manager, or just hire an agency itself, just so you know, like if you're going through that process and you're really considering hiring someone, here's a list of questions that you definitely want to make sure that you get to make sure that you're really making a wise decision. The other link I'm going to post in here is, when it may be time, to hire someone. Here's some, things like we talked about, the cost benefit, making sure that you can measure, performance and expertise and all of that, when it may be a wise decision to hire an agency versus hiring someone internally. And here's, the things that you need to consider. So that's a second link that I put in here. But no matter what you're hiring for, I mean, it's always wise to ask questions and have a detailed list of questions, whether it be hiring a social media account manager or, hiring an attorney or whomever. It's really just thinking about what your goals are and what you need to get out of the relationship. And is it somebody that you can work with to really represent you and have that good relationship with ongoing? So, I mean, that's the whole point of it.
We have a statement in our office, Jessica, to GET, you got to ASK. So there's, and I tell people all the time, there is no, you're allowed to ask me a question anytime you want. It doesn't mean I have to answer it at that time. So if I don't have the information, maybe I'll get back to you and I'll figure it out. But you're always allowed to ask questions, because that's how you learn. So, and it was the same thing when we started looking at websites and all that. I would call people. I would look at different websites and say, who did you have develop that for you, and what does that tool work like? Because it can be overwhelming to a business owner.
It is,
especially because
there's so much there.
Well, and people in your field, you guys speak a different language. and sometimes we assume that people understand our language, and we don't, So if you have someone that can really break it down, and I think the most important thing is just like even in my business, people don't necessarily need to know what you know. They just need to know that you know it and can explain it in a way to them that is useful and that they can use.
That's a good point. They don't need to speak that techie jargon to try to impress you or confuse you, but it's all about, knowing that you know how to help someone,
Right.
I was trying to look up here.
Exactly.
I just went to a conference and they broke down like hiring on heart. And I think this can go across any facet of hiring. But I was trying to find how they broke that up. And it was really cool. It was hiring on heart, and they broke it down to hiring people that are humble, that are, I don't know if I can find it in here. I'll look at my Twitter, but hiring people that are humble, that are eager to learn. I don't remember what the A was. Reliable. The R was reliable, and T was transparent. But I really liked how they talked about hiring on heart, and always remembering that, the HEART acronym when you're
Sandra,
working with. What's that?
Was it approachable?
Yes.
Was it approachable, Jessica?
I think it was approachable. Yeah, it was someone.
Yeah, Sandra just put that in the comment box over there. Yeah,
I think it was approachable. I'm just trying to find it in here. Yeah. Okay. I was wrong. I was wrong on that. I apologize. Hire on heart. Humble, effective, adaptable, reliable, and transparent.
Adaptable.
So adaptable. Yeah. So I really liked that. I'll put that in here. But when working with anyone, to make sure that you hire people on heart and coachability was her kind of summarization of that. So whether hiring internal or not.
Nice. and evaluate other people's product. I mean, that's the big thing. So, I'm going to post our website on there. If people want to jump on and check our website out, and it has all of our social links on there and kind of see some of the content that we're putting out and how we're engaging with people. What we've tried to create there is a brand. We tried to take myself, since I'm involved in both businesses, and brand Dr. John Bennett. So is the voice that we're speaking across the two different Facebook accounts and through our website and everything, the same voice. In other words, I don't want it to be that huge contrast. So, check it out and see what you think about it. We're pretty happy with the content that the company that we hired has created for us, and it's a learning curve. I mean, what we're putting out right now, I hate for people to say, you should see Bennett's website 6 months ago. It was pretty good. I want them to say, you should have looked at it yesterday, man. They posted some really cool stuff. You know what I mean? Exactly. It's constantly changing. It's constant development because, I want to be, we may not be, a year from now, I may not be hot. So I got to take advantage of it right now, right?
Always keep improving, right?
You got to take advantage of the opportunity of a lifetime and the lifetime of the opportunity, right?
I like that.
You got to get on it, and you got to get moving with it.
We could just follow you around with like a little tweet box, like all these little sayings that you say are all like tweetable quotes. Like just follow you around. You're full of good content. Life lessons to live by. Can you believe we've already made it past 30 minutes in our training session here? So I'll be, respectful of your time and promising to try to keep this at 30 minutes. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat pane here or hop in. I am during that time. While we're waiting on questions, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our next session coming up next Tuesday. We're going to be talking about SEO, how to win local search engine optimization. So how to win at local search engine optimization. It'll be right here back on Blab at 4:00 next Tuesday. I posted the link here in the notes, and I would love to have you guys join us back next week. So, well, thank you, Dr. Bennett. I appreciate your time and your wealth of information just going through this process, and I'm excited to see. Thank you very much for subscribing. Excited to see what's next to come with you, and would love to have you back.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Jessica, and I really thank you for the opportunity to jump on and share with you a little bit about our experience and the transformation that's happened with our business and what we're doing with social. So you have great content. You guys put out some wonderful stuff. I really enjoy this show on Tuesday. So I'll be on there. I'll definitely check it out next week. So And again, I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your week. And thanks everybody for joining in. Hope to see you next week.
Awesome.